it's seeming like that hot topic that keeps on turning and turning and turning is those Los Angeles Lakers can't get out of their own way. Teddy, what's going on out there?
Well, I mean, what happened in Phoenix on Saturday had everything to do with what happened against the Bucks on Friday night. Remember, the Lakers led the Bucks in the fourth quarter, 2.5 minutes to play. They're up 118 to 116. And then Milwaukee goes on a 13-0 run, and they drain 4 straight three-pointers, and the Lakers go, oh, no, we got to play on the second of back-to-backs in Phoenix. And it was a no-show. It was an absolute no-show for L.A. This is a team, look, I bet them at minus 110 to make the playoffs when the prop first came out. At plus 300, I thought about taking a second shot. I'm like, no, I'm just going to hold. Now it's plus 600. Obviously, my initial wager, not a good one, and the Lakers suffer a severe hangover after the Bucks meltdown in Phoenix that has absolutely put their playoff chances in jeopardy.
Yeah, I don't like what you see out of the forget about even the body language with LeBron throwing the inbounds pass off the backboard, but not a lot to like what you see. We also saw, I believe it was Jeannie Buss over the weekend talking from the Sloan conference saying that, can't believe all the media and everybody. Let's be real here. That entire team was on the table, and you want to talk about some self-destruction at the trade deadline because they were all in on Anthony Davis, and it backfired, and we can't get over at the beginning of the season and over the summer when they were looking to add on with LeBron, a lot of one-year deals out there, Teddy, where if you were coming to the Lakers, you knew there was a good chance that you would be traded or they're going to move on from you at the end of the year, lock the morale low. And also, let's not forget, Teddy, the rest of the schedule heading down the stretch, the 7th toughest schedule heading in there. Not a good look for LeBron and the Lakers right now. It's going to be a long time coming, or a lucky streak coming for them, Teddy, if they want to get in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, it comes down to one factor. It's not like the Lakers can't do it on offense. Their offensive execution has been solid. What LA has not been able to do is get stops. The defensive intensity hasn't been there. During crunch time, when the game is on the line, the Lakers have fallen apart repeatedly in recent weeks. And, of course, they keep falling into these big deficits. LA has more wins in games where they've trailed by double digits than I think any other team in the league this year. That's not a stat you want to have. And that means that you're not coming out with max intensity. That certainly happened against the Suns over the weekend. We'll preview what might happen against the Clippers tonight, later in the show.
Teddy, it is March 4th, and you know what that means when the calendar flips? It's March Madness time here at sportsbookreview.com. For all the latest, follow us on Twitter at SBR Sports Picks. Check us out on our YouTube channels. Every single time Teddy and I go live here on That Betting Show, you'll get the notification to pop in and view the information, SBRodds.com. Also, Teddy, we have the Atlantic Sun tonight. And some people out there watching the show might not even know what the Atlantic Sun even is. But the fact that it's starting off March Madness in the conference tournaments there's always a word to the wise because, betting, some of us old school guys, we look at all of these conferences and we dip our toes in at times and we follow along. If you are a novice bettor out there just getting in March Madness, you want to feel that excitement, Teddy, talk a little bit before we jump in saying, just because the Atlantic Sun is in tonight in its conference tournament play doesn't mean we have to make a wager, does it, Teddy?
No, it doesn't. Look, 2 weeks from today, we'll be talking about brackets in the big dance. A week from today, a week prior to 2 weeks, from 2 weeks from today, in between the two, next week is probably the most insane week of the entire year when it comes to betting and college hoops betting because there's action literally morning, noon, night, 8 a.m. to midnight here on the West Coast. So it's one of the craziest weeks you'll find for college hoops betting. This week, we have a handful of the smaller conference tournaments opening. And this is, let me make it very clear. If you haven't followed the Atlantic Sun all year, don't try to learn the conference overnight and be betting the conference tournament. That's a surefire way. Sure, action junkies, you need something. You can find something. But when I'm handicapping conference tournaments, you better believe it's conferences that I paid attention to during the regular season on a daily basis. I'm not trying to learn a conference in 24 hours. That's not the way to make money betting basketball in March.
Also, keep in mind, these lower-level conferences here, they still play really good ball. Lipscomb's a very good basketball team, and you see some astronomical numbers possibly in the first rounds. But also keep in mind, when you get to the Power 5 conferences out there and beyond, these conferences mostly play on a neutral court in a big city, and it's a lot of fanfare. These lower-level conferences, keep in mind, a lot of these early-round games are played on the team's home court, so there is an advantage in that. Teddy, one more thing here, because since we're starting off Conference Championship Week, we'll get to some of the bigger tournaments and the bigger conferences as we go along. But talk about maybe playing in these environments here and maybe changing up a betting strategy. Because when you're looking tonight, There's no more style points in this. If you're looking at Lipscomb, depending on how far they run, they're probably not going to get an automatic bid or maybe on a borderline if they do get an automatic bid. But talk about these teams that are going to be playing back-to-back nights, some of them. Sometimes, win tonight, get a day off there. There's no more style points here. So when we talk about a large line there, they don't need to go on the court and blow them out by 30 points. But also talk from the other perspective, Teddy, that some of these teams know it's their final shot and they will be fouling and fouling and fouling to extend this game, knowing there is no tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's a key point, because not only is there less motivation for the favorites to run it up, but to counter that, you're going to find the underdogs, the outmanned underdogs. A lot of them are going to have a glass chin. What happens? They might fight for a while, for a half, but when the superior team makes their run, and guess what? You look up at the scoreboard and you're down 15 and there's 8 minutes left, and you're not coming back against this team, and this is your last game of the season, and you see some big closeout runs in these ball games on a pretty consistent basis. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of laying 20 points in conference tournament games. I can't think of a game of a year where, this is the spot I'm laying 20. I don't do it. But when you're talking about taking the big dogs, recognize that many times the fight will be out of them well before the final buzzer sounds.
Yep, talk about like losing in football terms, getting off the bus, you're already intimidated by the other team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but good to have March Madness around here and right around the corner there for the tournament. We'll keep you involved here on that betting show. NFL Combine updates and NFL free agency news. Yes, free agency news. You can't sign yet, but there's moves to be made out there. Teddy, we talk about the shorts, the T-shirts, the bench press, the cone jumps, all that stuff here. But some guys are there, and this is designed as a moneymaker. Montez Sweat up there blazes a 4.240 as a defensive end from Mississippi State, transferred in from Michigan State earlier in his career. Quinnen Williams out there. We all know the dominant player he is. 4.83, a 300-pounder, moving it downfield as a defensive tackle. A lot of these guys are making money, but always hasten there. And we take a look, it's a shame that, God rest his soul, Al Davis isn't around, because he would have been jumping through his box in Indianapolis to get some of these 40 times down, Teddy.
Exactly. It's like you hear the same story every year, and as the combine gets more and more publicized, the hype even gets greater. Just because someone runs a really fast 40-yard dash doesn't make them a great football player. Game film will show you, hey, does this guy take plays off? Hey, does this guy disrupt every time? 40-yard dashes will tell you how fast somebody can run in a non-football environment. It's insane, the draft risers and fallers based on combine times. I'm not buying any of it. The one thing I am buying, though, were the rumors about Nick Foles going to Jacksonville. And it's not a done deal yet, as you mentioned, but it looks like he's going to go. And I'm telling you, Blake Bortles Part 2, I know Foles had success in Philadelphia, chucking the ball up at times. I also know that the Eagles, with the choice, went for Carson Wentz repeatedly over Nick Foles. I'm not convinced the Jags are going to be any happier with this guy than they were with Blake Bortles.
Yeah, when you talk about the Nick Foles run there, and I'm the ultimate Nick Foles proponent, but when you're taking him out, he is going to get some familiarity territory with their offensive coordinator already being there. Tom Coughlin's going to say, let's lean on the defense. I get that. But again, Teddy, when you drop back to pass, you don't have that elite offensive line. You don't have that elite tight end. You don't have Alshon Jeffrey on the outside and the overall familiarity with your team. That's a tough division that he's going down to, because when you look at the teams in there, Indianapolis is ready to make a run. Houston's ready to make a run. Tennessee always in the mix as well. There are 4 really good teams there, and it's surprising when you take a look right off the bat and you see them listed, the Jacksonville Jaguars, at 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. You say, oh, man, I'll take a flyer. You have an upgrade at the quarterback. Just a year and a half ago, technically, they were in the AFC title game. A lot changes, but that's a competitive division there, Teddy.
It really is. And particularly, I look at the Colts. My initial reaction is this team's going to compete for the Super Bowl in 2019. My thoughts on the Texans are exactly the same way. These are 2 legit Super Bowl contenders. I don't think Tennessee's there, but if you're grading out the teams in the AFC South right now, Jacksonville, if they're not last, they're 3rd, and they might well be last.
Major League First Look, Teddy, not too far away. March 4th today, March 20th, the first games pop off. A week later, we'll open up here in the United States and get everything underway. Minnesota Twins 78-84 in 2018. Head into the season, Teddy, 50-1 odds to win the 2019 World Series, much better than some of their counterparts here in the AL Central. Team total, respectable here, Teddy. Estimated at 83.5 in 2019. The one thing I like about the Twins overall when you look at them is, they're a smaller market team in the way they operate over the past couple years, but they seemingly always have that competitive advantage up there where the team plays behind their manager. You got a new manager coming in this year in Baldelli, but looking overall at the season itself, every position they have 1 through 9 is a legitimate Major League Baseball player at this point, and also having a decent pitching staff and decent bullpen. Going to get some help, looking for Miguel Sano to come back this year, Max Kepler in right field. They have some good components there, and if you can get anything, Teddy, out of Byron Buxton at the plate to get him on base and use his speed, that'll be a plus for them coming up this year.
Sure, and the initial reports on Rocco Baldelli have been very positive. They're saying that he's going to be the most analytics-driven manager in baseball. And the early reports on team chemistry, pretty good. The team chemistry on this squad last year was not good. And this is a squad, again, right from the get-go last year. This team had a bunch of hype, a lot of hype. Hey, watch out for Minnesota. They're the up-and-comer. And right from the get-go, they crashed and burned. It was an ugly April and didn't get a whole lot better. And when all was said and done, ended up being a modest money loser. They were actually money makers at home. They lost 21 units on the road. They made a little bit of money for run linebackers last year. They weren't a disaster, but they came nowhere near the preseason hype. And what happens when a team gets hyped one year and they don't live up to those expectations the next year? Expectations go down a little bit. And meanwhile, Minnesota, you talked about some of the bats. Nelson Cruz matters. There's a guy that's 37 dingers last year. And you talked about the young guys, Byron Buxton and Max Kepler and Miguel Sano. We all know all three of those guys took a step backwards last year, and all three of them are capable of being all-star caliber players. You look at the pitching staff. You say Pineda coming back from Tommy John. He should be pretty good. Jake Odorizzi's been okay. Jose Barrios ate up a bunch of innings last year. This team might be decent. And decent should be good enough to make them some money. They're a 500-level team. You'll make money backing the Twins 2019.
Yeah, I believe so, Teddy, because when we talk about, the Cleveland Indians winning the division right off the bat, which is probably rightfully so, but they're not as loaded as they were last year, and a lot of other teams are rebuilding, so they should pick up some interdivision wins throughout the season, but a lot to go on tomorrow. We'll preview another team as we count down the opening day here on That Betting Show.